So we're going live. Good evening, everyone, and great to see you here. We're just waiting now for a few people to come on. We're trying a new experiment this evening and inviting a number of speakers in who have been following the series over the last 6 weeks, 5 weeks. Tonight's the 6th, and so we're just working out where people are and helping everyone connect up. So I have sent out the invitations, and we're still just waiting a couple of minutes for people to come on. Now they have guest links, so the guest links should have actually brought them to the live chat, if not the webinar itself. Trish, you're here. Hi, Trish. Now I've just sent you an invitation. I got a bit confused, Trish, with the links I sent you, and I sent you a guest that didn't actually get into the room itself. So, did you receive another invitation from me just a minute or two ago? You should have done. If you did, click those links. Let me see. Hi, chat for user reply. Good evening, Steve and Felicity. Now I've sent you some a different invitation, and so John, where do you get that link that I sent you just a little while ago before you came on? Where did you pick that up? And Carol, actually, both here.
I picked it up in my email.
In your email, okay. Yeah. So there you go, Trish.
I got it from Facebook.
Oh, okay.
Yes. Yes, I sent Carol's a little bit differently. So Trish, Steve, and Felicity, please check your email that you replied to me earlier today, and there should be a link there that will get you inside the chat room. What I inadvertently sent you earlier on was this guest link, which gets you into the chat without without getting inside the room to speak. So now I also have hi there. Now I'm sending a private message to someone who's just come in, and I can't see your name. So what do I need to do? Could send me your email, please. You should be able to do that as a private message to me, but I don't know who I've sent that to, because I've just says it's actually omitted the name for some reason. Okay, so Steve and Felicity, try that new link and you should come up on my screen here, along with Carol and John.
Can you place that link? Did you place that link in your chat box where you are at the moment?
No, it's not actually a straight link. It's an invitation that I send to their mail.
Okay.
Oh, wait on. No, it wasn't when I sent the one I sent to you, was it?
That's right. I just clicked Facebook, so maybe you can put it in the chat box.
I'll just grab the one I sent to you, Carol. which will be in my Facebook messages. And
maybe you could leave
well, that actually was the guest link. That actually was the one. That actually was the one that I sent earlier today. So, Trish, would you like to try the one that I've just put in the chat box?
How did John come up then?
Well, I sent John an invitation to his email.
No. Yeah, no, I mean, he's coming up on the big screen periodically.
Yeah, so are you,
Two
Carol.
screens open there.
Oh.
Yeah, you're on big screen now. At this end, anyway. But you most probably see yourself in the small box. I don't know.
I see myself in the small box. So when we speak, we don't see ourselves on the screen. We see who we're talking to. Because I can see you at the moment.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Who's on your screen?
You.
Now, the way it should work, the way I understand it works, and it's not working that way at the moment, is that whoever's speaking, the chat will automatically flick to them. The camera will automatically flick to them. So I should be on the screen now. Is that right or not?
That's right.
Yes. What are you seeing on the?
Well, I'm seeing myself. So, so if you click on one of the boxes down the bottom on the right hand side, where there'll be one of yourself in a big box, John and Carol. If you click on one of those, that will bring that view to your screen rather than having it automatically choose the camera. I've come across that before, but I don't know how to turn that view off where you no longer are choosing what you see. So that's a bit of a nuisance.
Oh, well.
So I'm going to just try presenting it and then stopping presenting. It doesn't actually make any difference.
Have we found our other people yet?
So what's happening, Steve? Are you having any luck finding that link in your email? I know sometimes when I was sending it to John, it wouldn't go straight away for some reason. So I'll do all that again, and we'll do the best we can to get everyone on. So I've just sent those again. Actually, here it is here. Share the permanent link, bookmark, come back anytime. Oh, I can. That sounds as if I heard some extraneous sounds as if someone was trying to come in there, but hasn't happened.
Maybe we all need to go to the YouTube one.
No, we have to be. Okay, I clicked on the link in the email and it brought me here. Thanks,
That's
Steve.
what happened with me.
But with you, Carol, it brought you actually through to.
No, No, the link in the email didn't. The link in Facebook did. The email sent me to that when I
Yes,
thought it was
no,
the
that's right. The link that I've posted in the chat box above Steve's last comment is the link that I sent you, Carol, in Facebook.
Right.
So somebody has come in after Steve's comment. The last person to make a comment in the chat box. Is that you, Timothy? I can't see a name, so I can just see hi, David, and right. No, Timothy is here too. Hi, Timothy.
I can't
Timothy,
see him.
would you like to check click that last link, 3 comments up above your link in the chat box, the webinarfusionpro.com link, where it says David Christopher Salomon admin. Can you see that, John?
Sorry, so hang on.
3 comments up.
Yeah, the link. Yeah,
Yeah,
but I'm pretty good, I think.
you're right now. No, I'm just checking that everyone is seeing the same thing.
I don't see any links. I've just
Oh, okay. I can see what's happening. We're all operating on Gmail accounts here.
Okay, so that's
Okay.
all right.
So
You might have to go back to the old format.
Well,
Maybe.
we may. Does anyone do Trish or Steve, Felicity, Timothy, or anyone else who's trying to come into the call? Just put a yes in the chat box if you have a Gmail account. So Google may well be filtering anyone who doesn't have a Gmail account. That could be something. Timothy, you have a Gmail account. Are you able to send that to me? If you are, I will be able to bring you into the chat. Okay. So Gmail has blocked us, or Google has blocked those of us who don't have a Gmail account for the moment. And I'm unable to go past that point. There is one other option, and that is to go to a different page. I would dearly love to hear from people tonight, so if you don't mind bearing with me for so. And add a custom in lab. It's public. Okay, Timothy. Yeah, I see your email here. Timothy, I'm going to send an invitation to that email address. Okay, an invitation should be in that email address now. with a link that will allow you to enter this chat room, this
That came up on
hangout,
screen.
rather. Pardon?
A notification that an unknown person was sent a link just came up on my screen.
Uh-huh. And Steve, would you like to send me a Gmail account? I'll be able to bring you in then. Okay.
Oh.
Right. Thanks, Steve. That now should be in your inbox at that Gmail account. So I'm expecting to see someone arrive in the room shortly.
Well, John just left.
John's only left his seat. He's still in the room.
He hasn't left the building?
He's not left the building, no. Oh.
I see I've just gone onto YouTube and I see in my recommended list it says Kuku Yaral straight talking for watching now live.
Yes. Yes, this is the that we're using in stream as well. So I know there have been other people who have been watching through Google. Through Google, you don't get the chat box and those other things. You can just view the broadcast. Timothy says you're hearing many repeats but can't get through. So Timothy, that probably means that you've got more than one window open. If you could close all your browser windows and go to your email, the Gmail address that you sent me, and just click on that link, and it'll open up a new window, and that should solve the problems with the repeating audio.
Oh, here's someone.
Here we go. Someone's Buddy Tat. Hello. Who is it? Oh, this is Felicity, is it? And Steve.
Yeah, hi. Hold on, we need some
Hi.
Hi there. Oh, very good. Okay. Thanks for persevering. Yeah. Hi.
We worked it out eventually.
Yeah.
Thing.
Well, it's we now know it can be done.
Hey,
so we're just waiting now for Timothy and Trish. I think Trish, are you still with us? I think Trish may be listening and watching, but doesn't have access to Google, so to Gmail. So
it looks like you're only allowed in here if you wear glasses.
Indeed.
Is it of a certain age?
Well, mine are cosmetic. I wear them only to gain access to Google.
All right.
I
So,
can see.
how are you tonight, Steve? For listening, let's bring you in.
We're, we were a bit worried about being able to get on because I've had some terrible problems with the ISP. I've spent most of this afternoon trying to troubleshoot, so the fact that we've got a connection at all is good.
Mm.
That's right. It's you're sounding very, very clear here. I'm not sure how the switching of the camera is going. Whether that's just let me know. I'm just seeing myself here at the moment. So if there is a problem with flickering of the screen, I can come in and control that. But it means I have to remember to switch to the person who's talking, and sometimes I forget, as you've probably realised over the last couple of weeks. So we're just waiting for Timothy. Last we heard from Timothy was that he was getting a link happening.
Get some bounce light. Try to do.
Wasn't sure that I couldn't quite understand that.
Better.
It's breaking up.
Okay. The camera switching to be working, sort of.
Yeah.
What normally happens here is that the camera automatically switches to the person who's speaking. Now that can present some problems if there's background noises that are flicking in, or if someone makes a oh yes or a comment or an agreement with someone else who's talking. It can get a bit hectic there. But I think if we're aware of that, because we're not too many people, it should be okay. So look, we're running nearly half an hour now. So let's just give 4 more minutes to see if Timothy can come in. And I do suspect there is someone else whose name I cannot see.
Can Trish say
David,
say hello on the?
I've got a message. I've got a
Are you
message
there,
from
Trish?
Hang on.
She's listening. She's listening in. She said she can't seem to open an account with the plug-in. So she said, let them know that I'll listen in, and to tell everyone that she's got glasses on.
Right. Okay. Well, that's the main thing taken care of. Thanks, Trish. That's terrific. So you can still, of course, use the chat box, Trish, and we can still. And same for you, Tim. If you do want to comment, please use the chat box.
Yeah, same for you, Timothy. And Timothy, are you wearing glasses?
You'll have to go and
now,
some of you.
Just for
Timothy,
for the people. Okay. Now I need to just say one more thing here. People who are listening are on a 20-second delay. People who are in the chat room, so Steve and Felicity and Carol and John and myself, we're actually talking in real time or nearly real time. People who are listening are 20 seconds behind. So we'll keep yes, Trish, I am getting your message in the chat box, and I'm just saying that we see that 20 seconds late. So and you're hearing us at 20 seconds. So please feel free to put anything in the chat box at any time, and we will go over to that and catch up with you there. So we just have to think into time zones at the moment. Well, welcome everyone to Kuku Yaral, the 6th episode in the Fires of the Ancestors Are Burning. And we've gone through a very good exercise over the last 5 weeks, and we're sort of bringing it together tonight with the general chat. John's train has just arrived at the station, and I'm going to hand it over to you, John.
Thank you, David. Good evening, or Yalada, Jawangara, to all our friends and relations out there. Steve, Felicity, good to see you again. Trish, good to know you there, and Timothy, good to know you there. Tonight we thought we'd just have a general chat and attempt to have some face and face, so people can actually see who we've been conversing with over the last several weeks. And I guess last week we read out the vision statement, and we looked at from where we were going through, and the question was put to you about.
Trish.
Yeah.
Welcome, Trish. I'm just interrupt there. Sorry, John, interrupt for a moment. Trish, great to see you, and great to see you wearing
John.
glasses.
Okay, that's all right.
Hi, Trish.
Hi.
So, so we have Timothy's on the message box. So online we have Trish. Hey, Trish. Welcome. Felicity, Steve, Dave, and Carol. So good to see you all. I was just sort of going over last week that we left it with a vision statement that was collated from the input that you put in the week before, and we sort of collated that into one statement. And hopefully we encapsulated your thoughts and your words. And then the question was, I think, in last week was, well, what is it, given that, I'm just sort of ad-libbing at the moment, given that we're coming from an essentially a society of people that is still essentially enduring the impacts and effects of invasion and all that encompasses, how do we go from that into the vision statement? How do we realize that? What are the things that we can personally do? And you know, I mean, of course, I know a number of you there. We all do what we do. We're all contributing in some way, be that in our schools, where we're, you know, insisting on ensuring Aboriginal studies are there, and also Trish, I know she works around in her association with Aboriginal peoples. David and with his work with Anugu up in the APY lands, and Carol with her extensive work and in the South Australian community, and a lot of it within the Aboriginal communities here as well. And I guess myself in doing what we're doing, which is, this is all pretty much what I do, other than the Tai Chi. I sort of, but I think I still try and carry that through the Tai Chi in our relationships and things like that. So there's many ways that we can have an input into bringing about change and fostering change and encouraging change. So I guess I'm I'm interested to hearing a little bit about your own experience relative to that, I guess, tonight. Yeah. And of course, if you have any questions that you'd like to put either to myself or David, by all means, please feel free to do so. And Timothy, please jot down your comments and or questions. And I guess lastly, I guess maybe perhaps you may, if inclined to do so, just provide us with some feedback through an email of whether you've thought the presentations over the many weeks has been useful or has meant something to you. And I think we would like that not for praise, but to see where we can also improve and better develop what we're doing in this medium anyway. Yeah.
Okay, thanks, John.
Thanks, John. Maybe we'll just go in the order that we've come in tonight. And Carol, would you like to maybe just take a minute or two? Know who you are, what you do, and your thoughts on the last number of weeks as we've gone through this workshop.
Yeah. Well, I've been familiar with John's work for almost 20 years now, and in the early days saw the storyboards actually delivered in workshops and have seen the impact as people sit and go through those stories. So I've just been really pleased that they're sort of coming back or having a second life form on the internet, because I think it takes a lot of energy to deliver them personally, you know, in settings, and the internet, this is such a great way to share it further and wider. And even though I'm very familiar with the storyboards, I've loved seeing how they've emerged, and it's always quite a thrill when the snake kind of, you know, appears through that journey. So we value that, and I'm appreciating technology, and this is like, you know, the you know, that book, The Digital Aboriginal. This is kind of like to that place. So that's my feedback. The information wasn't new for me, but this format is, and it's fantastic.
So, Carol, just before you go, would you like to take a minute just to introduce yourself? I think probably some people may not know you. So.
Oh, okay. Yep. Well, I'm David's wife and John's friend of many years. I work in the area of Aboriginal. One of the areas I work in is Aboriginal women's health and healing programs. So I have a program called The Art of Change, and that's using cultural practices of art, story, creativity, and meeting in the circle rather than sort of lined up in chairs. And we go through a process of using the mandala art form, well, that's one of the forms, to share stories and also deliver. So I'm a certified life coach, so incorporate life coach and personal development material in with the artwork. And then I took that program into the young men's detention for an Aboriginal boys specific program, which we called Beyond the Journey, and it followed the Journey to Healing program. And then this was like a life coaching, more the sort of the developing the powers of the mind and that kind of thing. So that's my background in relation to John's work and David's work.
Thanks, hun. Steve, I'm just working left to right here on the bottom of my screen. Steve, would you like to introduce yourself and speak?
Hi, Steve. um, look, I guess this is all has been fairly new to me. I've known John and respected John for quite a long while, for a number of years, and but I haven't had much contact with his work with the Aboriginal community, though I have known of it, but not much in the way of detail. So this has all been quite a revelation, and I think it's a wonderful thing to get this out there and to share it around the way you have done, and hopefully this will go further, because I come from a generation where we weren't taught any of this material at school, and similar uh, age to John. I'm in my sort of late 50s, but this is all virtually unknown. To hear the truth of it and hear it sort of directly from the people involved, and from John, who's researched it so meticulously, has been a fantastic learning experience for me, and I really do appreciate it.
Thanks, Steve. Steve, what's your work or your background? I'm just a little bit curious how you occupy your days when you're not on webinars on Sunday night.
That's so Felicity. No.
I wish.
My background originally many years is in journalism. These days, and for the last 15 years or so, in tech journalism, and I work with Choice. You've probably heard of Choice magazine. I run and put together for the last years a magazine called Choice Computer magazine, and that keeps me out of trouble. It's by no means an IT expert, but it's all about consumer technology, so that's sort of my forte. But a writer. I've run design studio previously, and I've been in the print game a little bit, but my forte, I guess, has been writing. And apart from that, of course, I've known John for a long time through my involvement with Tai Chi, which is where I first got to meet him through.
Yeah, that was a lot of years ago now.
Yes, is in the room.
Yeah, I'm quite.
Felicity.
I'm 10 years younger than Steve, so. Yeah.
Well, you look at it anyway. Maybe this lighting is a bit.
We're in the dark.
All right.
Well,
shut my
Felicity, I've seen your on paper as well as on chat, but yes, well, let's hand you the talking stick and hear from you.
Hi everyone.
Hi.
I'm a
long time listener.
Yeah. I'm a high school English teacher. I've also worked in learning support. I'm in the southwestern Sydney region, and I am connected to John through Tai Chi, and through that I've also been able to learn about his culture and what he has been doing, and I've been able to talk with him and gain his experience which has helped me in the classroom with the kids that I teach, because we have kids in our school of Aboriginal background. They have a variety of programs for them. I'd had some experience working directly with them, coordinating the funding that went to them. So I've been very lucky to have John to ask advice of and get the best way to present things. And he and David have both helped me out by recently I had a documentary project with my Year 10 class, and they've viewed two brothers walking, and they wrote to both John and David and asked a lot of questions about the process of the documentary creation and John's background, and so they've been putting something together to go back to the kids. So it's been very, very good. And I actually sent him a pretty long email this afternoon about where the Aboriginal cross-curriculum things fit in our educational syllabuses and things, because we've been coming up with some ideas. So it's all very good.
I'll have a look at that.
Terrific.
I'll get some opportunity. Thanks, Felicity.
Thanks, Felicity. Trish.
Oh,
Hi.
sorry. That video's coming too. I know David has done
Yes.
it. So, yeah. It's in the mail.
Still a little bit in the mail. Yes, a little bit, very close to the mailman. Yeah, bit of tidying up to do on it. I'll try to get that to you this week, actually, Felicity. So Trish, it's yours. Are you on a iPhone or something? Are you, Trish?
I'm on an iPad.
Oh, so am
On
I.
an iPad. Okay.
Yeah. I'm just laughing. Isn't that one of the 3 great lies of the 20th century? My check is in the mail. I'm from the government.
That's right.
I'm from the government. I'm here to help you. And, of course, I'll still love you in the morning.
What was
Sorry.
the last one, Trish? I came through a bit garbled.
Of course, I'll still love you in the morning.
Oh, yes, that's right. Absolutely. So I'm glad that you were able to come on, Trish, after a little bit of effort there with Google. But
Yeah.
yes, we've come through. Good to see you.
Yeah. Nice to meet you, David and Carol. Of course, I know Felicity and Steve. I've known them for the past 3 years, and John, I met you on and off over that time through Tai Chi. I'm an early childhood teacher by trade, but I've also worked in TAFE, and that's probably where I feel really lucky, fortunate. About 25 years ago, I learned about the stolen generation because they had introduced a module in TAFE for students studying childcare, and it was called Aboriginal Studies, but it really tracked in a very respectful way the experience of colonisation for First Peoples. So that I felt very fortunate that I was part of learning with the students with that. And then I left TAFE and went to work in the disability sector with children with disabilities. And part of that work was as a consultant to childcare centres, and I worked for about 3 years supporting Murawina on the block in Redfern, which was quite confronting. It certainly exposed the impact of colonisation on Aboriginal culture. I met some amazing Aboriginal people that taught me a great deal about what to value in life. And I've stayed in that disability sector since then, and I'm now working in the Nepean Blue Mountains and southwest Sydney. And I work with some Aboriginal people within my organisation, but also with other organisations who are all trying to do the same thing, which is provide access to services for young children who are at risk of delayed development or who have a disability. And I'm, again, working with some really fantastic people one of my colleagues, John, I think I sent you some information on her, Brooke Joy. She's Bowendick, and she from South Australia, from Mount Gambier. She spends quite a bit of time down there sharing the language, because she has actually studied that language.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I work with her.
Yeah, she's done some great work bringing that regenerating that language. Well, bringing it back, actually.
Yeah. Did you want to? So, all right, that's me.
Can I ask, Trish?
Yeah.
Yeah. In South Australian local language, Murra or Murras is hands, and Weena on the west coast is women. So I'm just wondering, Murra Weena, what does that? How does that translate?
I don't know. It was it was called Murrawina. It doesn't operate anymore. The block is really not a good place for children to spend their time. Yeah. So I'm not sure of the origin of where they got that name from.
Yeah.
Languages, Yeah, I don't know, and I didn't ever ask either.
Yeah. So I know there's a place in Sejuna called Weenamugga, which is a women's centre. So when I heard Weena, I thought, oh, that's
okay.
That women again.
Murra. I'll see if I can find out.
Yeah, I'd be interested. Thanks. Yeah.
And we've got a chat message from Timothy here, who says, "Okay, I'm a retired odd bod with a young Aboriginal couple as friends. When I was rock and roll muso, played with various Koori people. Then, while working with Department Land and Water Conservation, had contact with Gamilaroi people." So Gamilaroi, I believe, is Glen Innes Taree. Is that right, up in that area? I think so, in the New South Wales highlands there. Timothy will be on a time delay here with us. So he'll come back in, I'm sure, at some stage. Chopped up audio. Is everyone getting good audio? Or
it's okay now.
Right.
Yeah, it's okay now.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, so we're all pretty much doing stuff anyway, and it's interesting. I think we were in what we've been discussing, and I know from past experience, many people who hear things for the first time simply don't believe it, and that it's still things like this are still happening, and of course we've had a very terrible week with them young people over in northern or Darwin area, Northern Territory, where we see that brutality and the bare teeth of the institutionalization of Aboriginal youths, and I think the government was very unusually quick to act in announcing a royal commission into it, which good for them. We trust that some good comes out of it. However, I remain somewhat sceptical.
Totally.
I'm not. I think it was 25, 30 odd years ago we had the Royal Commission into Black Deaths in custody, where they looked at the incarceration of Aboriginal people and the deaths in custody. Back then, there was some, I think, 99, I think, recommendations arising from the Royal Commission. Very few, even today, are implemented, and even those that have been implemented, they've not been implemented fully. And we can all appreciate, I think, that in the government departments and the bureaucracy, that things over time just keep rolling on and rolling over, and again it gets pushed back to the back burner. And we have the highest rates of incarceration of First Peoples in the world. Second only, I think, to Greenland, but much higher than the incarceration kings of America. Aboriginal people are sometimes 30 times higher than the incarceration rates of America, which sort of says quite a lot. And so there's and when you, of course, when you incarcerating children, when you brutalize children in that way, it certainly doesn't bode well, for their future. But also you're dealing with the future of a whole culture when you working with the younger generations, as we'd all be aware of. So it's I would hope that they would, and I don't know that they will, though they said they wouldn't, would expand the references of the Royal Commission, the terms of reference of the Royal Commission, that they would expand that somewhat further, and they would expand it to cover the whole of the country, and because we all know stories from all over the place, and it's interesting that politicians can act so oh, we weren't aware of all this kind of thing, where we really know that they have been, and they've just completely ignored it. It's certainly a very sad and unfortunate thing to happen, and to see that the graphic picture of that young fella in that torture chair, and then the gassings and things like that. So I guess what I'm getting at is we still have a way to go, and what I've always found is that culture needs to be, and it's not just me. In fact, if you go to communities, even in remote communities, three things that really matter is the maintenance of their country, their stories, and their law, and yet these are things that are constantly denied or not given much attention to within the Aboriginal communities. Instead, governments tend to say, well, these are the programs you're going to have, and this is what we'll give you funding to have. And they continue to fail and fail and fail and fail time and time and time again. So,
John, I thought it...
After you,
Sorry.
Trish.
I thought it was ironic that that story aired on Monday night, 24 hours after we had our last yarning session that was focused on think about our list of our, the disadvantage and how are we going to get to our ideal, all those beautiful sentiments. And then to be confronted with that the following night, it was like the gulf for me had just opened up like a huge, massive hole. It was quite distressing and quite shocking. And I'm sure everybody who watched it would have been equally affected in some way or another by it. I had a staff meeting during the week, coincidentally. So I have a team of about 15 young. They are women at the moment, but we have had some blokes. We need more therapists who are men, but speech pathologists, OTs, physios, psychologists, social workers, teachers, and we had our team meeting on the Wednesday, and we always acknowledge country at the start of the meeting, and I took the opportunity to raise the Four Corners story, but I was thinking about what we had said on Sunday night, which was how do we get from A to B? How do we get from this colonisation impact to a society that is much stronger and functions well? And so with that in mind, we just had a bit of a chat about, because not all of them watch ABC, they're 25 to 30 somethings. So not all of them had seen it, but they'd heard about it in some way or another. And I just invited them, in the coming weeks to perhaps get more informed themselves about the issues, or have a conversation with someone about it, just to talk about it rather than forget about it. It was a big to-do on Monday night. It needs to be a big to-do every day, not just when Four Corners pays attention to it.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, I think what you were talking, Trish, before about
Oops.
Okay, there's Trish and David's. Are you there, David? Or are you frozen?
Or education.
I think Carol and David are Oh, yeah. No, Carol's there. Oh, David's back.
Oh, yeah.
Right. Okay.
Okay.
I was just a bit
I think we had
John, because I was trying to see if
we had a bit of a freeze up there. Just very briefly, Trish, I believe that the course that you referred to in TAFE of Aboriginal Studies was one of the very few places that were actually giving that information. And there was only a very small number of people who ever had access to that information. And as far as I know, it still isn't really readily available. You have to go out of your way, and you have to know what you're looking for still today, to get access to that sort of information.
Yeah.
And what you get through the media is never a complete picture. You don't get the context, and you get the outrage, and you get the emotional response, but you don't actually get enough background, deep background, to actually be able to make, choices about what you can do. And it came home to me, and I've sort of talked about this on numerous occasions, about after those royal commissions, or the bridge marching and so on. And I remember I was at Newcastle, living in Newcastle at the time, and I was over there at the uni, and with the Aboriginal Wallatuka, I think it was called, wasn't it? The Wallatuka, the Aboriginal unit in University of Newcastle, and there were Aboriginal people in that teaching in that unit who were then saying, "I didn't know about this," and the response amongst the whole staff there was was saying, what, tell me what to do and we'll do it, because, we're so moved by it all. But what struck me was two things. The fact that there was such poor, amount or quality information available to anyone, and the first information of this type that come through with a big shock, in a way that made it, difficult to respond to in a useful way. And the second thing, what I was going to say, but there you go. So one of the big challenges is still telling those stories, just the very basic stuff about what happened in the Aboriginal family. I mean, I grew up in southeast Queensland. We had Aboriginal people who were living, who my father employed to, we were clearing farmland at that time, and there was an Aboriginal family came in to, pick up the sticks and get the land ready to put the plough through, and they were living down the bottom of the hill in a canvas tent, and I just couldn't work out, it's sort of maybe 6, 7, 8, 9, something like that at the time. And so it was just a big mystery, who were these people, and it didn't match with the idea that we were talking about Aboriginal history, and so that meant it's 200 years ago, which is what we got from school, that idea that it was a long time ago. I know it's much better than that now. But still, where's the story that you can actually, unless you go to do an Aboriginal studies and are quite deeply involved in it, there needs to be a way, I think, that it becomes part of us being Australian. This is our history too, us white Australians, from Europe. Not just in the terms of the things that have happened in the last 200 years, but 60,000 years before that as well. And,
can I say something about those boys and that situation? Having worked as a youth worker, and we hear like Royal Commission and research, it's always about relationships. It's always what makes the difference. And I think about some of those boys and really hard to engage because they've been very wounded very young.
Oh, yeah.
When we used to have the older Aboriginal men come in to lock up and do programs with them, the respect is automatic. So the boys were very, they're just very respectful. And when I've worked with youth workers, males unfortunately, who have that very confrontive kind of combative attitude, those boys just like lock into it. And so the lack of skill and the lack of compassion, because you can have these really strong youth workers who the boys know they can't push around, but they respect them. So I'm thinking through all this money that's going to go into a Royal Commission, I hope that relationships is mentioned, because often it's not, it's outcomes and status changes, all that language, but it's all about relationships that will make a difference, I think, and attitudes obviously that have to change as well.
Just want to come back to Timothy here, who's listening, and yes, Gamilaroi people at Moree, Narrabri, Inverell. Yes, that's right. And he says, yes, it's good to see public response, but Fed government is already setting it up to fail. So, yeah.
Yeah, that's true.
Steve or Felicity, did we want to? Do you want to come back in here? Did you want to say something?
Well, I was sitting here from the perspective, and this is something I've mentioned before, I think, from the perspective of a teacher, I think there is a lot that has changed in how Aboriginal culture and story and experience is being addressed in the classroom, and I would say from my knowledge for at least the last 10 to 15 years, the Stolen Generation, for example, the stories of the Royal Commission was a set text in the HSC, and that's actually something I myself studied. So Year 12 students, Year 11 students are experiencing what occurred. They're learning about the government experiences behind that. Rabbit-proof fence was the other text that's quite often used when we're looking at the history syllabus and we're talking about the Stolen Generation and we're looking at the legal rights and ramifications for Aboriginal people. I myself teach with Year 7. We do a picture book unit of the rabbits and we talk about the invasion and we talk about what happened when the first fleet arrived, and that line of acknowledging that this was not the correct thing to happen, but also acknowledging, well, the people that were brought here were, the convicts were being poorly treated by their government as well, being sort of cast out of their country and put into an environment they don't know. So I think there has been huge changes to what information is going out to kids now and what expectations are being placed on educators, and not at a New South Wales state. We're talking across the country where it is into the curriculum, it is in the all syllabus that these stories must be experienced, these cultures must be talked about, these histories must be experienced, and teachers, I have to acknowledge, and teachers have to be able to prove that they can understand these cultures and give their students those experiences. And these are things that have really changed, I think, in the last 10 to 15 years. So I do feel while there's still horrific things that are occurring, I think the kids of today are really hearing these stories and hearing these cultures and being exposed to these ideas in ways that just was not occurring before.
The sad part of it's good news that that's happening, but of course it's these things take so much time. It takes time for a new generation and the next generation then to become more aware. It's just such a slow rolling process. Fortunately, it appears to be starting to head in the right direction, but we still have the problem of how you get something out there more immediately to the sort of now, because these things are happening now, and that is a conundrum. I think it's good there's some things being put in place which, if they keep the momentum behind them, will help for the future. But of course, we still, we need to supplement that. We need to also do as much as we can now, and that's got to be at a grassroots level as well as an official level.
I also think the important point is they need to be authentic stories and they need to be first-hand accounts. I know how kids that they get frustrated because they'll say, oh, we're hearing this again, we're going through the Aboriginal stuff again. That's what they say because it does come across a bit textbook. So I've found when I've used Stolen Generation stories and we'll watch Rabbit-Proof Fence, and they're the things that the kids will really grab onto because they're human. These are real people, and especially working in a lower socioeconomic area, a lot of my kids will relate to those things because they've got issues happening at home and they've got broken up families and they've got this anger inside them, and it's finding the parallels. I think that's the biggest thing that you're trying to do. I think there needs to be away from this culture, that culture. We need to start looking at each other as people, and I think that's where things are trying to move towards now.
Absolutely right. I think, Felicity, I know I can come across a bit negative at some stage, and even though you know, when I was teaching in Newcastle, I actually, you know, had very good access at that time, teaching at Carrington, and we were about 25% Aboriginal kids at the school, and you know, that was really terrific. The thing that struck me was that it wasn't even then. It wasn't till later that that I was able to really get a sense of what the Aboriginal or an Aboriginal worldview meant. To me, that's one of the big issues, and you know, we're seeing some of it come through in the current brain research, and some of those sort of really areas that it seems counterintuitive that we learn about it from there, but you know, some ethnographic studies and that sort of thing. I remember hearing from the Bidinjara mob talking about stories that were handed down about Lassiter when he went into the remote areas looking for gold. And by all accounts, he was a bit of a mongrel, and they were sort of laughing at him. But what struck me was how different those stories were when I was seeing them from the Aboriginal perspective as opposed from the white historian. And it really wasn't about whether he was a good guy or a bad guy. He was a bad guy, but that's not what the stories were about. It was the insight into the human condition that I was privileged to see from an Aboriginal point of view. And to me, there's an enormous richness there, where you have a culture whose primary objective, one of the primary objectives, is not to make money, but to make art, shall we say. I mean, that's a bit of a generalisation, but there's truth in that, you know. And so that, you know, when you're doing ceremony and dance and song, that's the business of life, of kids being born, of old people dying, of, you know, getting your food and living in your country and all those sorts of things, which I find so enormously enriching compared to the rather humdrum encouraging life that I have in the city. It's not to say that there aren't great things there too in terms of high culture and you know great experiences that come from, you know, highly developed Western culture, but we are not able yet to see the sophistication of the Aboriginal worldview because it is just so different, and unless you get it firsthand, it doesn't survive the translation.
Yeah,
that's my view.
I think it's different and also has been demonised, and I think that kind of negative affirmation over and over with the racist language that's got such a long history to it, and seeing sort of the flawed other, that just hasn't, that adds to that disconnect by, you know, sort of the white people on top Aboriginal culture and anything to do that has this whole negative language around it. My stepdaughter, so David's middle daughter, was working in a construction company in the office, and she was hearing some of those terms that, you know, we would hope have died out just in the regular how people were speaking about the Aboriginal people in the park in front of them. So I think that historical demonising still resonates today, and that kind of assumption that even with the literacy program, that if kids get skilled up with reading and writing, which is important, then that will change everything, but no focus on non-Aboriginal people becoming literate in Aboriginal culture and the Aboriginal way of telling stories. So I think that's still very current, the kind of flawed other. Yeah.
Would we be able to remember thousands of songs and thousands of stories in a way that was common for every, you know, Aboriginal boy and girl to begin learning, you know, at the campfire every night, you know, hearing a different story, hearing different songs, and remembering those, you know? the strength that comes through from an oral culture rather than a literal one, or a literary one. And I think there's an assumption that we make that Aboriginal people are going to be automatically better off when they have a Western education. And to me, that's only such a small part of the story. Yes, that's true. You know, the education is important for everyone, and I haven't ever come across, anyone on communities that have not wanted a good education for their kids. And then I think, well, I would like to get a good education about country, about the things that a culture learns by practicing it for tens of thousands of years. What's the genius? What's the knowledge? What's the insight that comes through when you're, learning and exploring those things? So that's what I'm keen to, and I guess that's the motivation for making Two Brothers Walking as well, is to try and grapple with that question of how do we value that cultural viewpoint and the things that we've been at the West. The West has been at it for a couple of thousand years at most. It's insignificant compared with some of the learnings that has come through from people living in remote areas, and it's still there. And that's close to my my heart, I suppose, in thinking, well, how, because it changes you. It changes your view of people, of human beings, and what it is to be a human being when you appreciate something that's such a radically different viewpoint.
I've learned quite a lot about how Aboriginal family construct is. That's quite different to Western culture, from working in the early childhood field, and that's been really interesting for me to see. The fact that there are aunties and uncles, and all adults have an important part to play in raising a child, and getting consensus. Particularly if you've got a little one with a disability, it's all parents and all families love their children unconditionally. In most instances, I'm not talking about Aboriginal, I'm talking about all people. But it's quite a complex social system within Aboriginal culture that I've observed. I don't want to stereotype Aboriginal culture, but it is quite complex and very important to pay respect to how a family functions in order to get the best outcomes for children.
Yeah,
absolutely.
I sat on the board of Nungamimina, which is the Aboriginal Women's Domestic Violence Service, for a few years, and we were making a transition from an old, totally inappropriate shared shelter to cluster housing. So the kind of the model that's pretty common now, where you have the staff house and then the units all around it. And at the same time, I was working in a non-Aboriginal specific women's shelter where we had already had that model in place. And through that time, we had to really fight hard to have 3 and 4 bedroom units, not 2 and 3, because of family size difference, but also how family is. You can be maybe caring for your sister's children and that sort of thing. And a lot of the rules of the homeless sector, like the funding that we were receiving, we couldn't house larger families. So say, for example, if a woman arrived with her sister's children and there was no kind of like definite plan of when the sister would be coming back, then you weren't supposed to be able to take them because of like mandatory, care of children. So all of this sort of web of red tape was around it. So I came to learn from that a lot of the Aboriginal specific programs and things that are kind of targeted specifically, in this case for Aboriginal women, are actually not. They're just spaces for Aboriginal people within a white system that's got this kind of fixed thing.
Yeah.
We had to really work to have what was really happening in the community and the women that would come to the shelter, rather than what the service agreement said should be happening. And so that the definition of a family was really, even for an Aboriginal specific agency, was challenged by the funding body. So some of those things, what I became aware of was it takes a lot of energy for the Aboriginal staff as well, because they're only dealing with really complex, and it's not 9 till 5, and then dual relationships, if it's a family member who they're doing case management for, but that person's an older family member, and then dealing with all of the other things. So it's the well-being factor for Aboriginal staff, and the complexities are much higher, I found, and you probably would too, working in the area. You know that a lot of the issues, the non-Aboriginal staff, 9 till 5, straightforward, mum, 2 children, they're not dealing with those issues. Yeah.
Yeah, much more complex.
Yeah.
Okay. We better check in. I see John in deep contemplation.
I'm enjoying listening.
So where do we go from here? I guess that's the question that we're asking. Or what's step in that direction? It's clear that we do have opportunities and work with them, and yet to me, it feels good, but not quite satisfying in a way when in some areas, and I really take on board what you're saying, Felicity, about the changes in schools. I know there's been huge advances there, and yet I find it so difficult to bring together my city life and my bush life from when I go up north, and it's difficult even to it's difficult to find the reference points to be talking about the same thing in a way. Does that make any sense? I don't know if it does or not.
I think it does, David, but this is one of the problems, is that such a very different perspective you're dealing with. This is why it's so hard to close the gap, because you're looking at completely, largely very, very different ways of viewing the world in a fundamental way. And programs before have not, worked with simulation and things like that, and why the education and things is a good thing. But as you said before, there's very little depth when these subjects are brought up. There's very little depth brought to light, because there is just not really much genuine understanding out there of the scope of the differences of I guess it's not an easy answer to say where do you go from here, because it's really got to be, I guess, about bringing about encouraging more of an open spirit of communication and understanding, because you can't come up with any bit of information to say, well, this will solve the problem, we need to tell everyone this. It's you've got to you've got to get people to understand that the culture is so different, but it's just so entirely valid. And you know, people are only, certainly in white society, used to seeing things from one point of view, from a materialistic sort of you know white majority kind of point of view. And I don't know that the message is really being communicated enough about the validity of the depth of the Aboriginal culture and history, and perhaps that's an area that we've got to push.
I'd agree with that. But in saying that, I think the fact that the expectation has been placed on the system that these ideas must be, or they are of value and of merit, it has forced people to step up and say, well, how will we do these things? And one example is there's a program that I know of called the 8 Ways of Learning, and so it's all about understanding how culture teaches its children. So from my understanding, it was developed by Aboriginal people. It came from their experiences. It's a literacy teaching program that a lot of schools have adapted into their teaching methodology, and I think that's a sign of hopefully where things can go, where now the expectation has been placed that we must address these things, that people are now looking more authentically, turning to the community and saying, well, how can we present these things? And I think as time goes on, there are going to be more opportunities for Aboriginal cultural groups and advocate groups to be working to make things more authentic. I also know there's more things like Aboriginal language is now becoming part of the curriculum and students can study it. So kids are being able to learn their own language and maintain it in that way. So I think that there is hope. I think there is the expectation, the line has been drawn, and I think it's just a matter of the rest of the community catching up and finding out how do we take things further and how do we do that effectively, how do we do it so it's honest.
You're absolutely right, Felicity. I think we need to keep doing the audit on the things that are working and the things that are making those small steps in the right direction too, because they do add up. They do add up.
Rosalie Kunoth-Monks, did you see on Q&A when she did that magnificent response, I am not the problem? That, you know, really putting it back on non-Aboriginal people, that I think someone used the term the Aboriginal problem, and she said, I am not the problem, and she spoke in language and named who she is, and that recognition that it's not an Aboriginal problem, it's actually a coloniser problem. That, you know, a lot of the fixing needs to come from where the problem has been created. So yeah, it's very. Did anyone else catch that speech that she did? Yeah.
When I talk to staff about children with the needs of children with disability and how they can participate in their community. So this is all children with disability. I tend to talk about children being included, not integrated, because integration was something that was used to refer to children with disability in mainstream settings, get them integrated into school, integrated into daycare. But what that meant was that making the child with disability fit the system of childcare or school. Whereas inclusion is about making space for that child and respecting that child's individuality and what they bring into that community of learning. And I think about that, and I think about Aboriginal people, and we have to shift from this integration so that Aboriginal people should be learning to live in Western culture and make space for Aboriginal culture in the Western community. Create the space so that they can live their life according to their culture and participate in their community as well. Strong similarities between that. I've spent many years talking about disability, but I can see there's a link between what we're talking about here with Aboriginal culture.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think those who would have us believe they have some power have those same use that same language. I think, Trish, because it's worked so effectively for them for some hundreds of years, perhaps longer, and it's right. It's about how we look at power, how you relate to that, and how we start to change that language and start to question that kind of language. As you've mentioned, this kind of thing that the sort of language that, they have to just do this or they have to just do that, just like us and things, and have to be, and I don't mean this but have to be equal. Well, sometimes equal doesn't really equal. If you know what I mean, it's some people would say, no, we're happy to be here. We don't particularly want to be the same, and I think that's good too, and particularly where Australia is, to expect people to be the same. I think we have to learn to appreciate the wealth and richness of diversity in every aspect of our lives. I think what Felicity was saying is about remembering who we are as human beings and relating to each other as human beings, but respecting, we come in all shapes and forms, as much, and we have the diversity of the earth and the shapes and forms of the earth, and that's what we are all, well, as we said anyway, a part of, and we don't. There's no caring and sharing is a part of Aboriginal worldview and lifeways, and so that's never a problem for us in that respect. But and I think a lot of people in Australia think and talk about the very same things that we're discussing, but it's those people who would have us believe that they have some form of power that need to be shifted and need to be held accountable, and to simply tell the truth and then to act upon it. Unfortunately, they don't, and when they don't want to do that because of they're fearful of losing power, whatever that might be for them.
The illusion of,
they'll lose perception of it anyway. But I want to thank yourself, Trish, Felicity, Steve, Timothy, and Carol, and for the participation and for bearing with us over the weeks, and I become enriched by the conversations and from listening to what other people are saying, you know, because none of us, colonisation, and people are always, what are you going to do about it? What are you? And it's really, you know, the question is about, well, really, it's not about what we're doing about it. It's about what, perhaps it's more so what you need to do, you know, about it, you know, and there is no, because we're still in the midst of this thing, or this beast that we call colonisation. There's no answer. No one can say, well, if you do this, everything will become all right, you know. So I'm sure that all of us, we know exactly what we don't want. We know exactly what we don't want in a society, and and pretty much what's required to work and live harmoniously within a society. We know those things, but how we go through it, how we need to get to that point, to get to that vision. Unfortunately, there's no set path, and there's no one way of arriving there. It's going to take many minds and many hands working together, whatever that outcome is. But it's, you know, to listen and to learn about the shifts within the education system, you know, the fact that we're sitting around having this conversation. You know, it's not so much that whether the fact that we're doing it, I think, is a great thing, and it's leaps and bounds on where we were 20, 30, 40, 50 years ago, even.
Yeah.
You know, and
Definitely.
and that's the, and I think Steve mentioned it. You know, the drag and the time it takes for those wheels to come about, and the many lives that are lost, and the, you know, the suicide epidemics and the incarceration epidemics, and all these kinds of things, you know. And as people, we got to keep stepping forward, and we got to keep these politicians on their toes, I think, and yeah, and please keep doing what you're doing. And David, thank you for putting on the Kuku Yaral over the last several weeks, or 9 weeks, whatever it's been in total.
You're welcome. Yeah,
it's
great fun.
It's good.
Learned a lot.
Yeah, it's good to sit down and have a yarn, and to get to know people a little better, you know. And next time we see each other, we have that sense of familiarity of cause, and of who we are, you know. And so thank you sincerely very much. Thank you.
Yeah, I'd like to concur there. As I send out the emails, the registration links each time, I no longer have the feeling of spamming you because I've met you, and it feels a bit more personal. So thanks for that. Yeah, it's funny how that works, but it's a bit similar, really. You know, it's about, once you make the personal contact, a whole lot of other things just fall into place. And you know, it happens online as well.
Some of those seeds we don't. Some of those seeds we don't know where they go. Those seeds of intention,
absolutely.
or you know, they're like, I think Felicity, when you sent through the questions from the kids, and Sal and John sat down with it, and I heard some of those stories, and thought, wow, these are kids who are going to be like mothers, fathers, grandparents, you know, they're the next generation. So seeing that, and then seeing them in that creative process and what their questions. I mean, these are the things. I'm a big believer in creativity as sort of a force for change. So that's been really inspiring to watch sort of from the sidelines through this process. Yeah.
Well, they were intelligent questions, you know. They actually, you had to think about a response.
teacher.
You know? Well, you know, we weren't going to go.
What was that?
We weren't going to go there, Felicity. Would you like to repeat that again, Felicity?
I said they have a very good teacher.
Well, they must. They must.
Oh,
They must.
No, we spoke a lot about that, Felicity, John and I. Yeah. The questions look, just to give you a little bit of background there, I don't mind telling you, we had a couple of goes, John and I, at recording those responses to those questions because there was so much in it, and you know, the first time we just sort of started and just as a conversation starter and see where it took us, and hours later we thought, oh geez, you know, how's,
2 hours.
we realised
yeah.
we had so much there that it was not going to be useful. It was just too much. So we come back and had another go at it and tried to be a bit more concise. So that was really useful. It was really useful to go through that process, and as I said, it's on my list to tidy that up and get that to you and your students.
We sort of imagine a classroom full of younger people sort of watching two grey-haired old people sort of rave on for 2 hours. It's not really going to hold their attention unless we've done something radical in the middle, you know, and we couldn't come up with anything overly radical. So,
That's right. Yeah.
So
anyway, we'll see. They can be the judge at the end of the day. Whether it's
well, we think we think we've answered them with the respect that they obviously needed to be responded with. I think, you know, because there's a bit of thought in the questions, and excellent. But you know, it's easy to ask a question. Sometimes the answer is, you know, a little bit longer.
Yeah.
It's very important. A lot of them do have ESL backgrounds or refugee backgrounds. So a lot of when John's talking about his youth and just his experience in life, a lot of that resonated with them, and they did want to know, how did you get through that? How did you move on? What has that done to you as a person? And I think a lot of that, the fact that they themselves have felt that.
We've just lost you there, listening.
Yeah, I think that grows. Yeah.
Yeah, that's right, Felicity. It's and I think and you know, that's the power, I think, of sharing, and you trust that it does some good, because you know that it's not, you know, what touches our spirit also touches another spirit. You know, I think that way. So I don't think that they're overly unique experience, but sometimes if a person gives voice to their experience, it certainly encourages and empowers others to look at it. And I don't sort of go in too much detail about it, other than to come from a space that says, you know, don't let people pigeonhole you through a racial lens. You know, be proud of who you are. That you have good friends, you have you have good family, and whatever your culture, be at ease with it, practice it. You know, don't succumb to this overwhelming feeling that you must be a part of the big crowd, you know. Yeah, be uniquely who you are, whoever that is, you know.
Well, I think it's probably time to wind up. We've lost Felicity and Steve. Thank you for coming on board with us tonight with our little experiment. I'm going to tick it as a success.
Absolutely.
And look forward to keeping the conversation going. Next week, we're going to have a change of pace, and I'm going to bring to you a radio interview that I did a couple of weeks ago for a local radio station here, and it's talking about Aboriginal culture from people who have had with asking questions. I'll just you're back. Great.
We're back.
Well, I was just doing a bit of a wind up. I thought you might have been giving us a message there, Steve. No, not really.
You're not the only one that can have. The whole computer just froze and we had to reboot.
Yeah. So I was just saying how great it's been to be catching up with you here. And next week, for a bit of a change of pace, I'll be running a radio interview that I did a couple of weeks ago with one of the community radio stations here in Adelaide, and they were people who had a little bit, but not really very much, connection with Aboriginal people, and so it's a conversation. Well, sort of a monologue in some ways, but I enjoyed the opportunity to talk about some of the high-level conceptual things that I've been taught, I think, or put together from spending time with the old men and women up in the lands, which is a different situation again to the privilege of being able to spend time with Aboriginal people in the city, and but not as different as you might think in some ways. So that's going to be next week, and now that we know how to come on for a conversation, we'll sort of maintain that. I'll sort of invite you on after the interview, if you would like to come in and respond to some of the things or with other ideas. And I think the long and short is to keep the conversation going. And get to know us and each other better, and who knows where that might go. So I hope that's okay with everyone, and
Yep.
I want to thank John in particular for putting Kuku Yaral and the fires of the ancestors before us again. And the power of that, and the inspiration and the energy to keep on going that comes with that.
Oh, you're welcome.
So, Timothy, I think. Sorry, John.
No, I was just going to say thank you again to Timothy, Trish, Steve, Felicity, for your participation. I know you've, out of all of us, David, Carol, and myself, you have travelled the furthest to get here. And thank you so much for that. Thank you.
Okay,
Thanks, John.
It's been a we all, John and Dave and I went to a fundraiser this afternoon, so it's been feeling a bit like a John day today, John. Listen to some beautiful musicians and had some scones and jam cream, so it was lovely.
And a wee cup of tea.
A wee cup of tea, yeah.
Did anyone? Sorry, I'll just open it up just before we close. Then.
I want to thank David and John. John, what you shared about your story was really, that was very personal, and I appreciate that you trusted us with that story. And David, you are so patient with technology. You know, I didn't see you. Well, I didn't see you pick up the computer and throw it across the room. You persevered.
No, it didn't happen that way.
You're very patient, man.
Wait for the bloopers.
Yeah.
And
yeah, that's only coming with the premium.
And I'm looking forward to Thursday this week because it's National Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander Children's Day, and I'm going to an event out in the Penrith region in Western Sydney at an Aboriginal child and family service. So I'm really looking forward to that.
Great.
So yeah. So thanks everybody, and nice to meet you, Carol.
Yeah, nice to meet you too. I went to see if I could friend you on Facebook, but because we don't have mutual friends.
I'm not a Facebooker. I don't do Facebook.
Yeah.
Yeah, sorry.
Yeah, no, that's okay. Some do, some don't.
Yeah.
Are you on Two Brothers? Do you get the updates?
No, I don't. I should join that, shouldn't I?
Yeah.
But if I have to have Facebook?
Well, I was thinking, mate, I must have tried to friend another Felicity because I thought
no, that's Trish.
Trish.
Yeah.
Oh,
Now you're talking to Trish now. Yes.
Yeah.
Oh, sorry, I've got my names mixed up.
That's okay.
Yeah, so Felicity, I tried to friend you on Facebook. Yeah. But we didn't have mutual friends.
Your page, you don't have your friends, yes.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay.
Okay. Thanks, everyone.
Good night.
Everyone
Good
ready
night.
to?
Next week.
Yeah.
Well,
Okay. Good night, all, and
Yeah.
I'll be back here again next week if you want to join me. Look forward to seeing you then.
Okay,
Thank you all.
Bye.
See you.
Thank you.
Bye.
Good night.